with the stream. I also need to quickly promote it, so if you guys could please tell me if everything is fine, the audio, the video. Okay. Let me promote it. And let me also check one thing. How many people are watching? All right, are we live? I think we are. Yeah, something is happening with YouTube. I'm not sure if that's just me or. There we go. I see it now. Okay. I see it now. Let me see the attendance. Okay, test. Yeah, perfect. Everything's working. Okay, cool. So, Ryan, good morning. So, I probably need to, we probably need to wait for, and Mr. Adikis here, cool. So at least we have the company now. Okay, cool. So then let's begin. It's a continuation of a very difficult series. The more we writing it, the more we are understanding that it's better to actually extend that series. It's going to be a pretty inclusive series. So far, last time we discussed eGHST elasticity. We're going to finish some of the details today from last video, from last week, and then we're going to go to the ghost elasticity today. Very complicated topic. After which, 3 articles already piled up. The latest one that I finished about Vita money is about 12 pages of lots of copy, lots of text, lots of quotes. So the reason why I like this series more and more now is because it clearly positions us as massive experts in the space. We're trying to distill every single little definition. Today, for example, we discussed what does it mean to be pure Web3, so we could, finally put a proper definition, right? So because we keep saying, oh, this project is pure Web3, that is not pure Web3. So we try to kind of give some properties, right, about Web3, but like, what is the actual definition, right? Like, how is it actually defined? And of course, you won't find that much information online. So essentially, this series is a perfect entry point for anybody who is not very familiar with blockchain, with crypto. They have some time to read, distill the information. They're not technical enough, and you're not supposed to be technical. This is, purely the economic side of things. And that is your window to decide whether you would like to proceed with Ghost or not. So I would consider, again, this series as highly kind of whether you are ideologically aligned to build a tool comprised of Ghost Chain, Ghost DAO, etc., that would be solving a specific problem. Okay, so last time we finished eGHST elasticity. I skimmed through some of the definitions, right? So remember, uh, we're talking about the elasticity and inelasticity of eGHST. And we have multiple components where that eGHST could be minted from, and those are the only 4 places, which is initial eGHST allocation, staking of eGHST, total bonds, and total pGHST. So total pGHST, we know that's inelastic, that's finite and limited because it's coming from GMV. Initial eGHST is just the donation, so that's finite and limited as well, so also inelastic. Now the question was about staking and total bonds. And for the staking, we said that it was inelastic, so please review the video from last week. We reviewed how staking is inelastic because at first it is elastic in the short term. Over the long-term time frame, as APY is either dropping or going down to 0, potentially due to the fact that certain price flow has been achieved, then there's no more eGHST coming out of the staking, and therefore that uh, eGHST component is becoming um, inelastic as well. Now, about total bonds, that is the portion that I would like to go over a little bit in more detail. So there are two types of bonds. The article has been including both of it, so I just kind of want to go over it, right? So there are two types of bonds, DAI bonds and LP bonds. And what happens is with DAI bonds, the treasury is increasing by the quantity of DAI. So if there's a DAI bond, which enables users to purchase eGHST at a discount in exchange for DAI. So let's assume the current price is $1,000, 1,000 DAI per one eGHST, and then the discount would be 900. So with that 900, that's a 10% discount. If a user is purchasing that bond with 900 DAI, the price of eGHST is not being impacted at all, right? Because I'm just buying DAI. Like essentially, I just have to have DAI in my wallet. So in that case, what happens is the DAI from the bond, the 900 DAI, goes directly to the treasury, thus creating potential to mint proportional quantity of eGHST, whatever the price is, right? Like in this case, 900 DAI is one eGHST. So this additional eGHST just got minted. So at that specific point in time, the supply of eGHST is elastic. Okay? But since the price did not get impacted much because he just deposited DAI directly into the treasury, what happens is if you go into the definition of elasticity, which is the delta of quantity over delta of price, the delta of quantity increased. Delta of price, like nothing changed, nothing happened to the price. So therefore, the DAI bonds are actually in the short term elastic, and over the long term they become indeterminate. Now, for the LP bonds, though, the situation is slightly different. Why? Because for the LP bonds, you need to buy the eGHST first on the DEX, thus pushing the price up. Then you have to contribute equivalent, well, a proportional quantity of DAI to the DEX to get the LP token, and then you're able to purchase the eGHST at discount via the bond. So what happens with the LP bonds actually push the price up proportional to the quantity. So thus the LP bonds are in the short term inelastic, and in the long term they also become indeterminate. So the table that I probably did not share, it's right there. It has been in the article, I just didn't share it. So if you can just go over it really quickly. So donation, short term inelastic, long term inelastic, and it's perfectly inelastic because the supply is completely finite, cannot be changed. Staking, it's elastic short term, inelastic long term, DAI bonds. Perfectly, well, actually, it should say just elastic. Yeah, this is a mistake here. Elastic short-term, neutral long-term, indeterminate. LP bonds inelastic short-term, neutral long-term, and P goes perfectly inelastic, perfectly inelastic. Yeah, this is supposed to say just elastic. So what we have over the long term is let me just get attention here. Perfectly inelastic, inelastic, neutral, neutral, inelastic, and that's why the conclusion is that eGHST is just inelastic. The reason why those neutrals are essentially like neutralizing each other, no pun intended, is because this is elastic, this is inelastic, so they are literally neutralizing each other to get to that final neutral state in the long term. Thus, even eGHST in the long term is inelastic, which is huge. Why? It means that it is scarce. In the long term, eGHST is scarce. Meaning, today, good opportunity to purchase it, buy it. Not a financial advice. Disclaimer. Okay? Because in the long term, it's going to be a lot more difficult to capture it because the supply is going to be increasing disproportionately lower compared to the price increases. So, and that is the genius of the Olympus DAO protocol and therefore of Ghost DAO as well, that essentially, yes, despite short-term price action, speculative cycles, etc., of course, be careful. Don't buy it like at super high, price levels. But over the long term, it's important to accumulate a certain portion of eGHST because in the long term, it's not perfectly, but it is inelastic. Okay. So we're done with this. Any questions, please shoot. Not an easy topic. And I'll say that this series overall is like not very. It's not like this a read that you can, a series of articles you can read while while you are in the bathroom. I mean, I'm sorry for this, for those examples in particular. Those series need some attention. However, while you are reading these series, you are heightening your knowledge not just about Ghost, but also about Web3 in general, and you'll see, and also about the monetary theories as well. And as we paused, we stopped last week on the thing where the short-term elastic and long-term inelastic is eGHST, and there are not that many assets like this, let alone money. There's no money like this. And that's an innovation, again, of Olympus DAO to be put in this specific quadrant. So now the question is, okay, cool. So even eGHST is inelastic in the long term. What can we say about Ghost? Mr. Adik is asking, so in the long run, the treasury will only grow in value because of the value increase in price. Will bonds and staking cease to exist? That's a great question. So if the bonds do not exist, the treasury will not grow. Staking will simply be expanding the quantity of eGHST, thus diluting the price of eGHST. Let me just repeat that again. Bonds increase the treasury. Staking does not increase treasury. Staking simply increases the quantity of eGHST, thus diluting the price of eGHST. But as it has been asked by one of the, I forgot who, I think it was Scorpion, who Warrior, who asked about the like what are some other ways to increase the treasury? So outside of the bonds, the treasury can be increased through DEX fees. So therefore, the DEX fees will always be pushing the treasury up. Another way to increase treasury is the assets comprised of, say, DAI could be restaked on other DeFi protocols, such as Aave Compound, depending on the yields. Of course, those protocols must be Web3, must be approved by the governance, etc. They have to be safe to be allocated there. So let's assume on Aave Compound, let's assume you could earn, let's assume again, 3%. In that case, your treasury grows by 3% per annum, right? Based on that DAI, plus you also have the DEX fees. Now, another way to grow treasury in some capacity, and there's a little bit of caveat here, is through bridging fees. So that is a massive innovation compared to Olympus. Olympus was single chain. Ghost DAO is multi-chain via cross-chain bridging connectivity through Ghost blockchain. So because of the bridging fees, the treasury can also be increasing. Now the question is this. The treasury is increasing, okay? Does it mean that the quantity needs to be increasing? Does it mean that the staking has to be in place? Maybe yes, maybe not. The DAO will be deciding. The staking, since the treasury is increasing, the staking can technically be reinstated. Or not. Because if the treasury just keeps growing, what happens is RFE increases per each token with the limited supply. Thus, the price will just start increasing. Why? Because if the fundamental value of RFE is increasing, why shouldn't the price be increasing? And that's what the DAO needs to be deciding. And that's a nice kind of a good problem to have, right? Where you have to be deciding whether you would like to increase the staking because your treasury is increasing, or you would like to not increase the supply of eGHST and just let the price go up. Both cases benefit stakers in both cases, right? In the first case, if the staker has no stake on DAO but the price increases, amazing. They just hold essentially, right? They're just hodlers. Now, the second case is if they stake and actually increase, kind of gain appreciation of eGHST through stake, that's also great for them. The price, let's assume, stays the same or dilutes a little bit, but the quantity they have is kind of making their share increase. All right, that's this. Great question. Now let's move to the ghost, elephant in the room. Is ghost, what can we say about the ghost? Now, the thing about ghost, the reason why it's more complicated, and again, that's why this series is so important, is because we have tokens and coins. I think one of the whales wrote today in the morning, like, it's a coin, it's a token, what is it? So, coins versus tokens. While not a super important difference, but let's cover it. The story was back in the day, one quote, quote, professional in the space, everybody back then was a fucking crypto expert, asked me, he said, oh, no crypto experts know this. Let me ask you a question. Do you know the difference between coins and tokens? And since then, I always hated, questions like that because they're so basic. Most importantly, they don't really kind of mean anything. Back then, it didn't mean much. Back then, it had not a lot of, it was 2018 or 2017. There was zero, like, differentiating profit from knowing that difference. Like, so what's the difference? Coin is a native, let's just say, coin is a native token, right? It means you pay the gas fee to operate on a specific blockchain. So, for example, Bitcoin is a Bitcoin coin. It's a coin. It's not a token. It's a coin because you pay fees in Bitcoin. Ethereum is a coin because you pay fees in Ethereum on Ethereum blockchain. DAI is a token, right? So it's a substance. It's it's tokens, right? But you do not pay gas fees in DAI. So DAI is a token. So that's the difference, right? So coin versus token. Now, the reason why that's relevant to us, why that distinction needs to be made today, is because in the Ghost ecosystem, we have Ghost as both token and coin. Okay? And that's one thing that takes some time for even for council members to register. So let me go over this one more time. Right? So it's an actual difference. So when we say something is a coin versus when we say something is a token, those are two different things. So Ghost coin is physically different from Ghost token and not at the same time. Let's cover it right now. So for example, let's assume that you are located on the Ghost chain right now. Okay, you are inside of the Ghost chain. You're the user. Through runtime, WASM runtime, right? AKA the analogy for smart contracts on Ethereum. So through smart quote quote smart contracts on Ghost, as a user, if you want to bridge your Ghost coin onto the EVM, what you're going to do is you got to burn the Ghost coin. So you have a Ghost coin. Now we pay fees in Ghost coins. On testnet, it's Casper's. So in Casper's, we actually pay fees, gas fees, right? So that's why it's a coin. So we burn the Ghost coin on the Ghost chain. And then simultaneously, the validators mint proportional quantity minus the bridging fees of Ghost token on the gatekeeper. Okay? Now that Ghost token then gets redirected from the gatekeeper and into the wallet of the user. So now the user has two wallets. One wallet is on the Ghost chain, another wallet is on the EVM, say Avalanche, right, or Ethereum, whatever. And then through the Ghost DAO, but that's important, through the Ghost DAO, that Ghost token then gets unwrapped into eGHST. The user controls Ghost, then the user controls eGHST. And then through the DEX, the user can sell eGHST in exchange for DAI, and then sell DAI in exchange for token XYZ. Boom. So yes, we can bridge Ghost tokens, Ghost coins, but we can also bridge DAI, and then we can also bridge tokens XYZ, because the tokens XYZ can be exchanged, swapped from DAI, for example, on the DEX. So the idea for us is, final idea, is not to bridge not just to bridge Ghost coins, but not just to bridge stable coins like DAI, but to bridge any token for any token. So you can have Ethereum on Ethereum, and you would like to bridge that for AVAX and Avalanche, you'll be able to do this through the Ghost bridge. Now, if you want to bridge both AVAX and Ethereum and gas tokens, gas coins, therefore, right? Now, if you just want to bridge a token, let's assume, I don't know, Uni token on Ethereum onto PancakeSwap. I think the token is called Cake, right? So from Uni token to Cake token on Binance, you'll also be able to do that with the Ghost bridge. Okay? So any questions, please ask your questions. So that's how this bridge would work. So in that case, what's important to us, right, the point of differentiation is we have a Ghost coin on the Ghost chain, and that Ghost coin got bridged into Ghost token on the EVM. So you have a ghost token and a ghost coin, and those are two different things, but why are they the same? Because they are one-to-one, swappable, bridgeable, except for the bridging fee. So minus the bridging fee. If you're the validator, though, you're not paying the bridging fee. Your bridge is free. Booyah, kasha. Okay? Now, similar architecture goes the other way around. So you are on the EVM, you're on Ethereum, for example. You want to bridge into the Ghost chain. Why? To become a validator, for example, or to bridge further, right? Like let's assume you're bridging from Ethereum to Ghost, and then you want to go to AVAX. So you have to go through the Ghost chain. So in that case, you start with token ABC. So swap that through the DEX into the DAI, from DAI to eGHST. That's through the DEX. Then that eGHST token, it's a token, not a coin. It's a eGHST token, then gets wrapped into Ghost also token via Ghost DAO. So Ghost DAO is essentially interacting with every single bridging transaction. And then the Ghost token goes to the gatekeeper, and then it's minted as Ghost coin on the Ghost chain. Now that transaction here happens thanks to the validators. That's what makes the bridge decentralized. So that's important. Typically, this transaction here happens in an Excel spreadsheet. Typically, that transaction here also happens in a fucking spreadsheet in Excel. Now, with Ghost, this is done by the validators. Now, you'll say, well, there are some other blockchains, Axelar, whatever projects, Axelar, well, Layer Zero, they have validators. Yes, they have the set of 20 validators that they all being controlled. They're selected and controlled by the same entity. Just because it's 20 validators does not mean it's 20 different entities. Now, just because it's 20 different entities does not mean that you could become the entity number 21. So therefore, you either have to trust all one entity or all 20 entities. So that's not trustless. The idea is that you yourself, if you want to, or anybody for that matter, can become a validator, so you don't have to trust a specific set of validators. That's what makes Ghost different. So this is validators, you guys right now who run in nodes, and this is also validators. Okay. And that's how we swap, aka bridge, from Ghost token on the EVM into the Ghost coin on the Ghost chain. Mr. IDK is asking a question. So the bridging fees are exclusively on the Ghost chain. If you are, I would say, bridging ETH to X, there are no fees on ETH. So the bridging fees are exclusively on the Ghost chain. So that is a great question. So let me paraphrase this question. That's a great question. I'm not sure if I'll be able to articulate it to the point where you guys will understand it. I may need to have more graphical help, right? Like additional slides. Essentially, what's happening is this. When I'm swapping ABC to DAI, there's a little bit of 0.3% fee that is residing on the DEX to the LP providers. When I'm swapping from DAI to eGHST, there's a little bit of 0.3 transaction fee that stays on the DEX for the LP providers. When we're swapping eGHST to Ghost, there's no fee. Right? But when we are bridging from Ghost token to the chain, let's make an example. Let's assume we're bridging 100 Ghost. And let's assume the transaction fee, the bridging fee is 1%. So what happens is you are bridging 100 Ghosts into the gatekeeper. So you're sending 100 Ghosts into the gatekeeper. Now the question is, how much of that is bridged? 99 or 100? The answer is 100 Ghosts are bridged. Here's the thing though. Of those 100 Ghost coins that are bridged, 99 Ghosts go to the user's wallet. 1 Ghost split between validators and the treasury. Treasury comprised of the Ghost cult, which comprises of Ghost council members, whales, validators, etc. Okay? So that 1 Ghost is then claimable similarly to how we are claiming our bridging rewards. So our bridging rewards are comprised just of that one ghost in our example, right? That 1% fee. In our case, on the Casper testnet right now, it's 6.9%, but for the sake of our example, it's 1%. So that one ghost of the bridging fee got split between validators and treasury on the ghost chain. Here's a kicker though. Remember, in order to bridge 100 ghosts, I had to buy 100 ghosts on the DEX. So I had to pump the price of eGHST, right, on the DEX as a user. But while the validators received their one ghost, in order for them to cash it out, they had to bridge it out and then cash it out. So what happens is, before before the validators are going to cash out their bridging fee, that pump, so that like the 99 ghost pump is bridged, right? But the one ghost pump that would then go into the bridging fee, that pump stays on the DEX until validators cash it out. Now the question, will validators be cashing it out? That's a good question. I mean, they could if they want to, or maybe they'll be running more nodes just to be a bigger proportion of the validator set. So that way we create a further incentive for them to not cash it out because they can run more nodes and therefore be a bigger proportion of the bridging fee. So earn more passive income. But if they do that, they don't sell that bridging fee component on the DEX. Thus, the price is pumped from that bridging fee. I hope that makes sense. So therefore, in a nutshell, if I'm explaining this to a 5-year-old, every single bridging transaction is pumping the price of eGHST until the validators claim it. And since there are incentives for validators not to claim it, then every single bridging transaction simply does what? Pumps the price of eGHST. And eGHST has inelastic supply. So what do? You buy it. Why? Because the supply is inelastic. Not a financial advice. And not just you buy it, everybody buy it because that's a mega freaking incentive. And that's the difference between Olympus and Ghost Chain. And that's the genius of the Vita money that is described in the next, it's going to be described in 2 articles from this one. The article is already published. It's about 10 pages. It's about 2,500 words with lots of stuff in it. And that's the genius. Okay. I hope that is clear. And again, I needed some more visual aids for that potentially. So here you go with Ghost interoperability, right? Because if you're trying to figure out the elasticity of Ghost token and coin, we need to understand what the difference is and also understand how they convert to each other. So how do they convert to each other? Ghost coin is equal to Ghost token minus bridging fee. And vice versa, Ghost token is equal to Ghost coin minus bridging fee. Because in order to get Ghost coin, you have Ghost token, then you bridge it, pay the bridging fee, you got your Ghost coin. And vice versa. In order for you to get the Ghost token, you have your Ghost coin, you bridge it back from Ghost chain into the EVM, you have your Ghost token. So in both cases, you're paying some type of bridging fee. Now, those bridging fees are not the same, right? So this one is a entry bridging fee. This one is an exit bridging fee. They may be different based on the auction, blah, blah, blah. But those are the general formulas. Okay? So for the sake of the argument, if you can assume that bridging fees are 0, we can say that Ghost coin and Ghost tokens are just interchangeable. And that is a huge thing. Why? Because that means that Ghost coin, Ghost token is the first interoperable token in the world. Fully interoperable. Now, when you're reading some definitions of interoperability, typically it means, interoperability. Let's capitalize on this term, similar to how lots of projects, lots of startups wanted to capitalize on Web3 because Web3 is so difficult to build. Let's capitalize on that term. Let's just call our startup Web3, even if it's not, because that way we can raise our capitalization of our project, or market cap, therefore. Same thing with interoperability. Interoperability has a very specific meaning, right? Within Web3, it means that you can essentially be integrated through decentralized bridges between different Web3 mediums. So between Ethereum, maybe Bitcoin, maybe Avalanche, maybe Tron, or whatever, right? So you can freely move from one to another flawlessly. Of course, that term has been misused. So interoperability means just, oh, if I'm just using multiple things, for example, if I'm using, I don't know, Uniswap as a DEX, and then I am using different chains. Well, let's assume I'm on Celo, so I'm using the DEX and Celo, whatever they call Celo DEX, and then I'm using like a stable coin of Celo, and then I'm using something else, then I'm interoperable. No, it's not. Like you're not interoperable. Interoperable means that you actually moving literally cross-chain in a decentralized way. And therefore, Ghost is the first interoperable digital token, first fully interoperable digital asset in the world. And that is something to be really proud of as you guys being part of this project. And you guys are contributing to this project. All right. So we are done with those initial definitions. Now, what can we say about the elasticity of Ghost? Because that's the elephant in the room. So the elasticity of Ghost turns out to be that Ghost is actually inelastic. But we need to consider different scenarios. First scenario is, let's assume Ghost DAO is only launched on one single chain, say on Ethereum. So in that case, we'll be discussing the single chain elasticity of Ghost. So we have Ghost DAO and we have Ghost Chain. We have Ghost DAO on Ethereum, we have Ghost Chain. So what can we say? Well, sorry, let me move here. Okay. So thing is this. The price of Ghost is changing based on this formula. So price of Ghost is equal to price of eGhost times the index. Index is finally identified here, right? Defined as the cumulative APY since day one, since the launch. So this is product 1 plus RT from 1 to T, where RT is the 8-hour rebase APY. So if you take all the APY together since the launch, and we calculate the cumulative percentage, we get to the value of the index. That is our index coefficient. So price of Ghost is equal to price of eGhost times that index. So here's the thing with that index. The index is either increasing or staying the same. There's no condition for the index to drop down. Why? Because RT here can never be less than 0. It's either 0, right? Or it's greater than 0. Similar to the scenarios we discussed last week. Please rewatch that video if you forgot. So if RT is 0, right, it means that the RFE either achieved $1 price or RFE achieved some type of price discussed, agreed upon by the council, some type of artificial price floor. Conversely, if RT is greater than 0, it means that RFE is definitely greater than 1, for sure. Because if RFE is equal to 1, then automatically the RT is equal to 0. The rate is equal to 0. So therefore, there are only two scenarios. So therefore, the index is either staying the same when the RFE is at $1, or RFE is at some artificial price floor agreed upon by the council, or index is increasing because RT is greater than 0. That's it. Those are just the only two scenarios. What does it mean then for elasticity, right? So if RT is increasing, well, I just said, right? Like index is increasing. If RT is 0, then the index is also plateaus, right? It just stays the same. So let's discuss that scenario. So when our index is increasing, therefore the APY is increasing. Of course, for the sake of this example, we just assume that APY is increasing at the consistent rate without the change. Practically speaking, it's not going to be the case. Practically speaking, today the APY is 69%. Tomorrow, DAO says, hey, let's increase it to 50%, or let's increase it to 100%, let's drop it down to 50%. So they can be changing it. Therefore, the curve's not going to be kind of, exactly kind of like at equal rate. But for the sake of the example, let's assume they are. So in that case, the index is just exponentially increasing. It's literally an exponential function, right? It's just 1 plus RT to the power of n, when n is the number of free bases, months, etc. So it's literally just increasing like that. But what happens to what happens to in that case? What happens to how many ghosts you can get? how many e-ghosts you require for every single ghost, or rather, how many ghosts you can receive per one e-ghost. Since the index is increasing, you can get less and less ghosts for every single one e-ghost at this rate. So you see those curves, right? So let's assume the APY is 69%, is this bright green line here. So if initially you could swap one e-ghost for one ghost, after 48 months, you'll be only able to get 0.1 ghost for every single e-ghost. So what happens is, because of the price, right, because of the index conversion, ghost token is becoming more and more scarce, more and more limited. And that's exactly what we want for good money from elasticity consideration. So as you can see from this chart specifically, ghost is always inelastic. It's becoming more and more inelastic as index is increasing, both short-term and long-term. Now let's assume that at some point of time, RNT is equal to 0, it plateaus. Okay, cool. So we'll get some exponential growth up until, let's assume, month 48, so after 4 years. And then it plateaus because let's assume RFE dropped down to 1 or RFE dropped down to 100, and 100 is the artificial price floor below which the governance does not want to drop. So in that case, the RNT is just 0, just stays 0, right? What happens in that case? In that case, the index looks like that. So in this case, right? So while initially you were able to to swap one e-ghost for one ghost, here you're able to swap, I don't know, maybe 0.6. One e-ghost for 1.6 ghost, and after that it just plateaus. So here you can only swap one e-ghost for 0.6 ghost. So then the question is, well, but that sounds pretty inelastic, right? Because I mean, if I have like unlimited e-ghosts, I can then get unlimited ghosts. It does not matter what the ratio is. You're correct. However, let's not forget that if we got to this point, it means that e-ghost just became inelastic. Again, please watch the video from last week. So at that point of time, in this specific scenario, e-ghost is already inelastic. It's already finite. Therefore, we can only get a finite conversion of ghosts as well. Thus, ghost is also inelastic. So ghost is inelastic both long-term and short-term, no matter what you do. Okay? So that's, again, difficult topic. Please ask questions if you have any questions. That's a single chain elasticity. Right? But then the question is, wait a second. What about multi-chain elasticity? So you have, it's fine. You have, goes down on Ethereum, but then you can also launch goes down on Avalanche. And now all of a sudden you have, like you just increase the supply of Ghost again. And then you can launch on Celo, and then you can launch on other chains. That's true. Here's a problem. There's limited number of chains we can launch on anyways, because there's just limited number of chains. It's not infinite. It's finite. In fact, the quantity of chains in which we can launch is limited by a number of considerations. Does it have a DEX v2? Does it have a good stablecoin? Does it have good TVL? Is it permissionless enough for us to even launch? Because we're running risk. We're running into risk of launching on a shady chain. Why? Because that Ghost token then can be bridged to the Ghost coin. And we could compromise certain things if we're not careful enough. So while let's assume there are at this point of time maybe 50 EVMs, the worthy EVMs on which it makes sense to deploy maybe is anywhere from 6 to 10. Or the others just simply don't have the TVL, don't have the users. No point. So therefore, what we have is, since the kind of like the multi-chain elasticity is just a general problem coming from the case of single chain elasticity, right? And since in single chain the Ghost is inelastic, both long-term and short-term, same thing will apply to multi-chain. You just multiply that inelasticity by 2 if it's 2 EVMs, or by 3 if it's 3 EVMs, or by 5 if it's 5 EVMs. But the inelasticity property still stays. The quantity is increasing, absolutely. But it's increasing in an inelastic fashion no matter what. So, do I have this thing here or no? 1 second. Maybe, wait, I don't have these charts. Maybe here. Similar thing, right? So similar situation here. So we probably discussed it, right? Like when you do this, when we do this on multiple EVMs. So same chart applies to Ghost when it goes multi-chain, right? So just because it's inelastic on EVM2 and EVM1, then we deploy on EVM2. Okay, cool. It just becomes inelastic again, no matter how many chains you supply, you deploy Ghost DAO on. Then the question is, okay, fine. We kind of discussed Ghost DAO and Elasticity on Ghost DAOs. They're both inelastic. But what about Ghost Chain? Ghost Chain is yet another animal. It's another source of Ghost supply. Yes, it's true. Because Ghost Chain has a finite supply, which we'll call Genesis, right? The Genesis supply of the Ghost coins, which will be attributed only to the validators, only to the testnet validators. So anybody who is validating today will be getting the Genesis block. Nobody else. Council members will not. Whales, other whales will not. GMV holders will not. Only testnet validators. If you're running 5 nodes, you're going to get 5 allocations. If you're running 10 nodes, you're going to get 10 allocations. If you're running 1 node, you're going to get 1 respective allocation. That's the only source of Genesis. Okay? Final destination. So, the Genesis by definition is finite. So the total supply of Ghost tokens and coins in circulation, possible, that's why we say the maximum supply. Like let's assume everybody decided to bridge their Ghost tokens to the Ghost chain, right? So therefore, what is the maximum possible supply of Ghost coin? Simple. The Genesis supply plus all the Ghost tokens in circulation. This is inelastic because it's finite, perfectly inelastic in fact. This is inelastic both long-term and short-term. Therefore, the total supply of Ghost coin is inelastic both long-term and short-term. And that is what Austrians call, well, they don't call it like this specifically, but they identify similar properties as perfect money. Gold has that, Bitcoin has it, and Ghost coin has it as well. So if you draw this table here, we have fiat, just to recap everything we learned over the last 3 weeks. Fiat, long-term, short-term elastic, bad money. Treasuries, somewhat inelastic short-term because of the auctions, but then long-term elastic. Gold, inelastic both long-term, short-term. Bitcoin, inelastic short-term, perfectly inelastic long-term because supply is finite. In the next, it's going to be finite after 115 years if they do not change the protocol. Ethereum, short-term and long-term elastic. Please, again, review the videos from, I think, over the last 2 or 3 weeks. eGHST, elastic short-term, inelastic long-term, and Ghost inelastic both long-term and short-term. So as you can see, Ghost is the same as gold and Bitcoin. And that is something to be really, really proud about. So the monetary function is that. And that needs to really sink in. Because people say, oh, Bitcoin is deflationary, but we discussed deflationary, right? 3 or 4 weeks ago. So review all these videos. We literally went over these articles. Those are absolutely important for us to then identify what are we really building with Ghost. Because yes, it's one thing to say we're building bridges. It's another thing to say, what are we really building? The fact is, let me jump a little bit further. The fact is we are building something that is both inelastic and self-replicable. We call the category of money Vita. We shared some sneak peeks in the Whales group about that. So we have fiat money, we have reserve currencies, and then we have Vita money. And the thing is, Vita was the first money in the history of the world. And every single economist confirms that that has been the case. But as money developed, as humanity developed, Vita just became not very functional. It lost its competition as money to reserve currencies like gold. Okay? Ghost can revive Vita money on chain because Vita just has amazing qualities that other monies do not have. We'll be covering this over the next many weeks, many, many weeks. So far, the series has already 9 articles. Initially, it was supposed to only have 4. It has 9, and it seems like it's just starting. Because I'm working on the 10th one, and I already have at least 16 articles, maybe 17 articles, and it's increasing every single week. Yes, it's daunting to write it, but I think it's extremely fruitful for us to share those thoughts with you guys as whales, as council members, so you know exactly what we are building. Yeah, we're building bridges, but we're really reintroducing Vita money, the best money that the world has ever seen. It just lost competition because of unfortunately because of material physical limitations. But Web3 unlocks those limitations. Great videos, Mr. DK, for you, I think. Like I actually like I'll be honest, while writing these articles, I have a couple of people in mind. You're one of those people. So I really, really appreciate your massive attendance and participation, because it helps me kind of have a person in mind for whom I'm writing these articles. It's very, very helpful. I have some other people as well in mind. So now the question is again, okay, cool, amazing. So, we know that, Ethereum dollar is money, not good monies. We're not talking about investment vehicles. We're talking about monies, right? And then you can argue, wait a second, dollar is about money. I get it, but Ethereum is a great fucking money. It went up. It went up so much. Like, yeah, it went up. The reason why it's going up right now is because it's chasing after the market capitalization. But once it plateaus, once it reaches certain critical mass, that's where the price will start stagnating, right? So right now it's just catching up as far as. So initially, of course, it may be a good investment, not a financial advice, but we're talking about the long term. Like in the long term, what's going to happen? Then here, that's treasuries. So we say also bad money. It's better to have your money in treasuries than dollars, absolutely, but still bad money because long term it's elastic. We identified that eGHST is one of the few categories, one of the few examples of this quadrant of this category here of short-term elastic, long-term inelastic. But the $1 million question, okay, fine. Ghost is building something which is inelastic both long-term and short-term. That's amazing. But gold already exists. Bitcoin already exists. What's the freaking difference? Why do we need another inelastic asset? We already have Bitcoin. And the answer is because Ghost is able to self-replicate. We're going to be discussing this in the next series, actually. But gold is not self-replicable and Bitcoin is not self-replicable. Inelastic assets themselves are not self-replicable unless they are Vita money. Vita money is both inelastic and self-replicable. That's why it's such a great money. Because the purchasing power, because here's the thing. I'm kind of like jumping a little bit in advance, but I would like to cover this in detail later. But just some food for thought, and we'll end up here. In today's reality, we're being brainwashed that gold and Bitcoin is great money because it preserves our purchasing power. And we think that that's the definition of good money. Why? Because fiat currencies, dollars and treasuries, are bad money. So we say, well, gold is better than dollars. We say Bitcoin is better than dollars. But what do they do? They're called reserve. So they are saving purchasing power. So we can say dollar erodes purchasing power over time. So does treasuries. Gold and Bitcoin preserves purchasing power over time. And that's why we say it's great money. But here's the thing we just forgot about Vita. Ghost is Vita money. So it does not erode, it does not lose purchasing power over time. It does not maintain purchasing power over time. It increases purchasing power over time. That is Vita money. So it's inelastic and self-replicable, thus increasing purchasing power over time. Not a financial advice. Let me show you the disclaimer. Materials presented for informational purposes only, not an investment advice. Please read that while reading articles. Keep that in mind. Let's finish here. I think that's a very, very positive note. Again, I love writing these articles. I think they will give this project, Ghost project, a new look compared to the competition, because we just put frameworks around what we built. Thank you so much. See you guys next week.